I finished Resident Evil Requiem at 2 in the morning, and I just sat there, controller in my hand, staring at the screen. I didn't want it to be over. And I'm someone who has played every mainline Resident Evil game. I've seen the highs, I've seen the lows. I know exactly what this franchise is capable of, and what it gets wrong. So when I tell you that Resident Evil Requiem might be the best thing Capcom has ever made, I need you to understand I don't say that lightly. Today I'm breaking down the whole package. Story, gameplay, atmosphere, how it connects to the rest of the series, and why Capcom right now is on a run that no other studio can touch. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, your opinion on modern Resident Evil is going to change. Before we talk about what Requiem is, we need to talk about where it comes from. Resident Evil has been running since 1996. Raccoon City, Umbrella, the T-Virus. Decades of lore, dozens of games, and Requiem sits at the end of a very long thread. Narratively, this game is most directly connected to Resident Evil 7 and Village. The Winter Saga, Ethan's story, cast a long shadow, and Requiem picks up those threads. The bioweapon conspiracy that started in a Louisiana farmhouse and escalated into a Romanian village. It all leads here. And then there's Leon. Leon S. Kennedy, last seen in Resident Evil 6 back in 2012. And Capcom didn't just bring him back, they brought him back older, more worn, more human. The weight of everything he's survived is written on his face. But Requiem doesn't just lean on nostalgia, it introduces Grace, a DSO agent who feels entirely fresh. Her story runs parallel to Leon's, and together they create something the series hasn't done this well in a long time: balance. The story of Requiem is dark, genuinely dark. It doesn't hold your hand, it doesn't over-explain. It trusts you to piece things together, and when the pieces fall into place, it hits hard. Without spoiling too much, this is a bioterror thriller at its core. Set in 2026, a new threat, a conspiracy that reaches back further than anyone expected, and two very different people caught in the middle of it. Leon's sections feel cinematic and propulsive, the kind of high-stakes action storytelling Capcom does better than almost anyone right now. Grace's sections are something else entirely. Quieter, more personal, more frightening. The dual narrative could have fallen apart. We've seen Capcom try this before with RE6 and, well, but here, it works. The contrast between the two protagonists makes both stories stronger. Okay, let's talk gameplay, because this is where Requiem really earns its reputation. Leon plays like a refined, evolved version of RE4 Remake. Tight, responsive, satisfying. Every shot feels weighty, every dodge feels earned. If you love the RE4 Remake combat loop, Leon's sections will feel like coming home, but turned up. Grace is a completely different experience. She's not a combat machine, she's underarmed, under-resourced, and every encounter feels genuinely dangerous. Her sections lean closer to RE7, resource management, tension, the kind of gameplay where you're constantly asking yourself, do I have enough to make it through this? And that split, that tension between action and survival horror, is what makes Requiem so special. Compared to RE4 Remake, Requiem has more variety. RE4 was a masterclass in pure action horror, refined to perfection. Requiem is more ambitious. It's asking you to switch gears, to adapt, to survive in two completely different ways. Compared to RE7, Requiem is bigger, broader, more confident. RE7 was a return to basics, intimate, claustrophobic, terrifying. Requiem builds on that foundation and reaches further. Neither approach is wrong, they're just different kinds of excellence. Horror games live and die by atmosphere, and Requiem understands that. The environments are oppressive, claustrophobic in the right moments, grand and overwhelming in others. The hotel sections is Grace, genuinely some of the most unsettling hours I've had in a game in years. There's a philosophy here. Requiem never lets you get comfortable. Even when enemies aren't on screen, the sound design, the lighting, the architecture, it's all working on your nerves. And when the horror hits, it hits with full force. This isn't jump scare horror, this is dread. The slow-building, stomach-tightening kind that RE7 was so good at, and Requiem carries that torch with confidence. Visually, Requiem is stunning. The RE engine continues to be one of the most impressive pieces of technology in gaming. Lighting, texture detail, character animation, it's all extraordinary. Critics have said it's the first time since the original RE4 on GameCube that a Resident Evil game has genuinely gone toe-to-toe with the best-looking games on the market. But here's what makes it truly remarkable, and this doesn't get talked about enough. This game is insanely well optimized. For a 2026 release that looks this good, the fact that it runs on a GTX 1660 is almost unbelievable. That's a 5-year-old mid-range card. And it doesn't just technically boot, it runs. Capcom's RE engine is pure witchcraft when it comes to scalability. For those of you watching who want the actual numbers, here's how it breaks down across different hardware generations. On the NVIDIA side, a GTX 1660 Super from 2019 can hit 1080p at playable frame rates on lower settings. Step up to an RTX 2060, still 5 years old, and you're looking at smooth 1080p with ray tracing on low. An RTX 3060 with its 12 GB of VRAM handles the game beautifully. High textures, DLSS quality, ray tracing on, no problem. The RTX 4070 gets you 60 frames per second at 1080p with ray tracing high enabled. And if you're rocking an RTX 5080 or 5090 with DLSS 4 multi-frame generation, you're getting a cinema at 4K. On the AMD side, and this is something that caught even the benchmarkers off guard, RDNA 4 cards are handling this title exceptionally well. The RX 9070 XT at 1080p actually beat the RTX 5080 in rasterization. The RX 7900 XTX covers you at 1440p with ray tracing. And FSR 3 is fully supported and hardware agnostic, so even Intel GPU users aren't left behind. The bottom line? Whether you're on a budget build or a flagship rig, Requiem meets you where you are. That's not something you can say about most games that look this good. And the sound design matches every pixel of it. Every gunshot, every creature sound, every ambient creak in a dark hallway. It's all deliberate, purposeful. The score knows when to swell and when to go completely silent. For a game where tension is everything, the audio does half the work. And here's the thing, Requiem doesn't exist in a vacuum. Capcom has been on one of the most remarkable runs in gaming history. In 2025 alone, Monster Hunter Wilds, the Resident Evil 3 remake, Onimusha 2 remaster. Major single-player AAA titles, one after another. In 2026, Resident Evil Requiem in February, Pragmata in April, Monster Hunter Stories 3, Onimusha Way of the Sword still to come. This is a company that knows exactly what it's doing. They've built systems, engines, and creative teams that consistently deliver, and Requiem is the crown jewel of that run so far. No other publisher right now is dropping single-player experiences at this quality and this frequency. It's genuinely remarkable. And speaking of Pragmata, I actually made a full video covering it on the channel. The gameplay, the story, the controversy, the performance, the whole package. And judging by the response, a lot of people were interested in what Capcom was cooking. So if you're sitting there wondering whether Pragmata is worth your time, good news, you don't have to guess. Right now there's a card on screen that will take you straight to that review. Trust me, you might be surprised by what I had to say. Check it out after this video, because if Resident Evil Requiem proves anything, it's that Capcom isn't just having a good year, they're building a legacy. Okay, the reveal all of us been waiting for. Code Veronica is finally here. Because I don't think enough people realize how big this announcement actually is. For years, fans have been asking Capcom to remake Code Veronica. Not Resident Evil 5, not Resident Evil 6, Code Veronica. And now it's finally happening. What immediately stood out to me was the tone. This doesn't feel like Resident Evil 4. It doesn't even feel like Resident Evil Requiem. The trailer is slower, ominous, and uncomfortable. It feels like Capcom is leaning heavily into psychological horror and atmosphere rather than action. Then there's the opening. Instead of throwing us straight into zombies and explosions, Capcom starts with a rainy Paris apartment and a mysterious old woman. It's unsettling, and honestly, it's exactly the kind of thing that gets Resident Evil fans immediately looking for clues. For newer fans who never played the original, that Paris setting is actually a huge deal. The original Code Veronica begins with Claire Redfield investigating Umbrella facilities in Europe while searching for her brother Chris. The remake appears to be expanding that part of the story significantly, and then Capcom starts showing locations, quick flashes, dark hallways, old buildings, prison-like environments. Just enough for longtime fans to recognize what they're looking at without giving too much away. You can tell they're deliberately hiding some of the biggest reveals. Classic Capcom. And Claire. Because wow, The RE engine continues to be absolutely ridiculous. The facial detail, the lighting, the animation. Claire looks incredible. This might genuinely be the best she's ever looked in a Resident Evil game. But the thing that has me most excited? The Ashfords. We haven't seen much yet, but if Capcom stays faithful to the original, new players are about to experience one of the weirdest, darkest, and most disturbing stories in the entire franchise. And I am telling you, you are not prepared for the Ashford family. The trailer only gives us a taste, but that's all it needed to do. Because after Resident Evil 2 Remake, Resident Evil 4 Remake, Resident Evil Requiem, Capcom has earned the benefit of the doubt. And if this trailer is any indication, Code Veronica might be the next Resident Evil classic to get the remake treatment it deserves. Here's the truth nobody tells you before you start Resident Evil Requiem. You think you're ready. You've played the series. You know what's coming. You've survived Raccoon City, the Baker House, the village. You're not ready. This game will make you feel things that survival horror hasn't made you feel in years. The kind of dread that follows you after you put the controller down. The kind of story that sits with you for days. The kind of moment, and there are several, where you just stop and stare at the screen. Does it have flaws? Sure. Longtime fans will notice the absence of extra modes, mercenaries especially. And switching between Leon's raw aggression and Grace's desperate survival instinct takes some getting used to. But here's what I want you to take away from this video. Capcom is operating at a level right now that very few studios in history have ever reached. And Resident Evil Requiem is the peak of that. A game that respects where this franchise came from while pushing it into something completely new. If there's one reason to play it, it's this. There is a moment in this game, you'll know it when you get there, that reminds you exactly why you fell in love with Resident Evil in the first place. Don't let anyone spoil it. Go experience it for yourself. And that's going to do it for me. Thank you so much for watching. I am Exord, and if you made it all the way to the end of this video, I genuinely appreciate you. Seriously, thank you for spending your time here with me. And before you go, don't forget to activate the hidden settings that every game needs. Subscribe for +5 FPS, like for +10 FPS, and that bell icon? That unlocks 20 FPS and frame generation. I can't guarantee the performance boost, but it's definitely worth testing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.